All right, Ray, check this dealership out right here. Look at all these Tundras, all these Tacomas sitting on this Toyota lot. So we've had this situation where we've had tons of Tundras, tons of Toyota Tacomas sitting around a lot of these dealer lots. And we have more problems that are coming out of Toyota where you have these Tacomas that are now getting recalled. And it seems like an ongoing theme with a lot of these car brands. But recently, Toyota's had some big problems. We've had some big problems with the Tundras, with their motors, and
Mm-hmm.
now you're having problems with the Tacomas. And what it's creating is this perception with the consumer, whether it's true or not, that okay, these trucks are garbage because they used to be great at Toyota, and now we're having a bunch of these issues, and it's creating this problem at a lot of these dealerships where a lot of these Tacomas, a lot of these Tundras are stacking up. How is Toyota going to really combat this when they're getting this persona or of having problems with their trucks?
For the longest time, they were like the gold standard of you knew if you bought a Toyota that you were buying a quality vehicle, and that's why people adored their Toyotas. That's why they had such brand loyalty. That's why they were such sought after vehicles as used vehicles. And suddenly, in the last couple years, they have run into some major issues. I mean, it was 100,000 engines on the Tundras, if I'm not mistaken, that need to be replaced because there were metal shavings in the cylinder heads and the blocks. I mean, that's not good for engine life. Number one, and now you're having brake fluid issues on the Tacomas. It's just it it is giving more people more pause about Toyota and where they're headed quality wise. Have they grown so large, and are they producing so many vehicles that there is no way for them to produce them in with the quality that they could when they were producing fewer vehicles? So it's a real conundrum. I would think that there's enough people out there to continue to support the brand moving forward because of their previous history, um, eh, that they'll still be all right. But I think it impacts some potential future sales when they continue to have some of the issues that they're having.
Well, I can tell you that it's affecting the dealers right now. This Tundra right here, and I've seen a lot at these dealerships that I've gone to, reduced by $6,000. That's coming off. And when I went there, when I was talking to the salespeople, they were like, "Yeah, you want to buy one of these trucks? We'll give you one free if you just buy one of them." I mean, they were joking, obviously, but
Yeah.
they were saying that they were moving big time off of the Tundra prices, off the Tacoma prices, because they were overloaded. There was even a sign on this dealership saying, "Okay, we got more new inventory in the back." They filled up their whole front inventory. They didn't have any RAV4s. They didn't have any Corollas or Camrys at the time. What they had was Tundras and Tacomas and a few 4Runners. But they were just absolutely stacked with these things, and it was a dealership whose owner owns a racetrack that's close to me too. And in front of their racetrack, they also had lots of Tundras, brand new Tundras, just sitting there. So they had these trucks sitting absolutely everywhere. And I talked when I talked to the salesman, I said, okay, what I'm guessing is that the motors, the recalls, stuff like that is creating a environment where it's very difficult for you to sell one of these trucks. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And these new trucks that were coming out, is like the problem's been solved. It's not even an issue in here. But
Yeah.
what we have to answer every single day when we're talking to these consumers, we have to say, look, those motor problems, they were from last year. They were from the year before that. They fixed them now, but it creates a dialogue that the salesperson has to have with the consumer to get them to tell them like this is not an issue anymore. But even though that's coming from a salesperson, right? So we're not, if they're talking, they're lying, right? So we're not going to believe anything that they're saying
I I
from a consumer standpoint.
I have heard through the course of my life that if a salesperson's lips were moving, they were lying. I've heard that. I have conversely, I've heard from a salesperson's point of view, if the customer's lips are moving, they were lying. So, but the problem is, as you describe it, is these are Toyota salespeople that really haven't had to confront this issue in the past. Okay, where the customers were coming in and they had heard about engine replacements, and is that still an issue? And the other thing that I think hurts Toyota above and beyond any quality issues is the price of some of these vehicles. I mean, Tundras are $70,000, $80,000. The Tacomas are expensive today. It is not as if Toyota is as inexpensive a brand as it had been in the past. And so if you combine some quality issues with the fact that the prices have gone up as much as they have, then yeah, stuff begins to sit because there's just not enough consumers out there that feel as if they can afford to participate. And that impacts Toyota more than most other brands, especially with the trucks. They're expensive. They ain't cheap.
Yeah, and this right here was just for one of the lower level trim Tacomas, and you're at $50,000.
Yeah,
for a Tacoma. I mean, that's ridiculous for a smaller truck. I mean, it used to be that your higher level trim, like F-150s, even your Tundras or something, they were $50,000. But
yeah.
now, just like you're saying, I mean, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 for an upper level trim. It almost. And then you add in the motor problems on top of that. Who's buying that? I don't. They're not going to be able to sell them.
Ultimately they'll be able to sell them, but they're not going to be able to sell them at anywhere near the asking price, as suggested by Toyota. So you just know that there's going to be large discounts that will become available, and greater incentives from Toyota in order to encourage people to say yes. And as we know, a customer won't say yes until they feel as if the value of what it is they're buying has exceeded the price they're asked to pay for it. And right now, at the pricing that Toyota's at on some of these vehicles, customers are sitting on the sidelines because they don't feel as if the value's anywhere near those prices that they're being asked to pay. So we're going to see deals.
So, and we talked about the ones that are on dealer lots and the motor issues and the scares that customers are having. It seems like NHTSA has been very, very busy over the last couple of months. But let's get back into how we really started this. But Toyota's recalling 106,000 Tacoma pickup trucks in the U.S. over a brake fluid leak. The last time I checked, brakes are pretty important.
Yes.
And I think you're going to need those to drive. But see, we're having NHTSA that's getting involved with all these. We talked about GM a lot about their motors. Tundras, big time with motors, where they can just implode on themselves, makes the vehicle stop. But there are a lot of safety issues that come along, and especially whenever these probes come in, these investigations come in, it's a pretty big deal, because that it's going to make these recalls happen a lot faster when you have safety concerns involved. We see that with GM. I feel like we're going to have a recall pretty quickly, all these GM motors, because of the danger that it actually can cause while you're driving it. And Toyota with their brakes, they're already dealing with motors, now brakes too. It's going to be the same situation.
I know that the number of many of the recalls that many manufacturers have faced have been software related and can be handled through over-the-air updates. But when you're talking about brakes and engines and things of that nature, those aren't the type of things that can be fixed over the air. And so it gives people pause when they're thinking about buying some of these things.
All right, new channel right here. So if you haven't already, please like, subscribe. It's free for you, and it really helps us out.
And if you don't think enough of us to like or subscribe, then, well, don't like or subscribe. Either way, just watch. That shortcuts have been taken. And the concept is, well, we'll worry about it when the stuff starts to break, as opposed to let's worry about it before it ever breaks. Let's just build it right. So part of it is this desire to get things out much more quickly than we had in the past, and manufacturers have put aside the need to make sure that what they're producing will actually work as it is intended to work for, I don't know, something longer than 3 years and 36,000 miles.
And this defect actually came from, and well, there's the poster child of recalls right there
Yeah,
on the on the screen.
yeah.
This is a Toyota article, but they have Jim Farley there. It's good. But it said that the clearance between the rear brake hose and the wheel may allow mud or dirt to build up there. So this is a design problem. This is not necessarily from rush quality or whatever. This is from the actual. This was pre-production issue, but we're seeing a lot of post-production issues too with quality. Do you feel like the quality of vehicles, the amount of recalls that are coming, do you feel like it's more now than it used to be? You were in the car market, for 30 years. Do you feel
More.
like there are more recalls throughout the years when you were working, or is it more concentrated now?
Well, there's always been recalls, but it seems it seems as if they just happen way more often today. But there were situations with General Motors and Ford where there were issues for years before um, the vehicles were ever recalled. So it's we just hear about it more today. There seems to be a greater frequency that impacts a larger number of vehicles every year. Um, and I think it's just part and parcel of our rushed society where everybody's in a hurry to get stuff done. I mean, if on that Toyota with the brake fluid issue is a design issue, well, you would think in the past that maybe they would have discovered that in pre-production or in post-production, and they could have handled it before they went into mass production. You would think that you would understand what the clearances would need to be in order to prevent the mud and dirt from building up in those areas. You'd think you'd understand that and know that just as you were designing it. You know what it's like on your other vehicles, what it takes. So why wouldn't you be able to expect it to be the same on your new stuff?
Do you feel like the size of these recalls is getting a little bit worse? I mean, it might be a recent bias for me, but we have Toyota that's had motor problems. We've had GM now that's dealing with motor problems. We
Yeah.
had Honda that had some recalls on a bunch of motors. I mean, Ford and Ram, they always have recalls on motors. It seems like those are big replacements because they're actually replacing the whole motors. I don't remember a time when we've had. I mean, I've only been doing it 13 years now. Well, 14 years now. My goodness, I'm getting old. But where you're having like multiple companies with models that are having whole engines that are being replaced.
Yeah, I don't recall that happening. I recall transmission issues where you put the vehicle in park and yet it was still in reverse. Things like that. But I really don't recall as many engine issues as what we seem to be seeing today.
Yeah, it seems like there's always airbag or brake recalls all the time throughout the
airbag
years.
recalls. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it. There were so many vehicles that were impacted by that, and there were so many vehicles that were recalled that were never taken in for the fix, and never will be taken in for the fix. So it's much cheaper for the manufacturer because I don't know what the exact number is, but the bean counters the actuarials would know that when you have a recall, what the percentage of people who are informed of the recall actually show up and take care of the recall. And my guess is that there's a rather large percentage of people that never bring the vehicle back for the recall, which is what allows them to figure out dollars and cents wise. It makes more sense for us to do it as a recall than to perfect the parts integrities and things of that nature prior to selling the vehicle.
And do you feel like with Toyota's their history, do you feel like these recalls recently, the Tundra, do you think they have actually taken a hit, or do you think they built such a reputation where they're still just going to be all these Toyota buyers and they're just buying Toyota no matter what?
I think there's a large percentage of people that have had Toyotas that will always remain Toyota buyers. There's some that have considered Toyota in the past that might not consider it in the future because of the recalls. It's going to have some impact. As to how large an impact, will it be significant? Will it prevent them from continuing to grow as a manufacturer? I doubt it. They survived all the issues that they've had in Japan with their Hino trucks and Daihatsus that they've had issues with there. They still sold almost 12 million cars last year. So will it impact them? Sure. But when you sell as many cars as they do, the impact will be minimal.
I can tell you what is absolutely impacting is the used Tundras and the used Tacomas, because those Tundras that have the V8 motors in them and the Tacomas that had that V6, they're going to the absolute moon right now, because there are people out there that don't want the 6-cylinder turbos. They don't want the 4-cylinder turbos. They want the V6. They want the V8. And those trucks are just they're going to be crazy for years. Because I don't see the Tacoma coming back anytime soon with the V8.
Yeah, those older ones are considered bulletproof, and the new ones are anything but. So yeah, there's a certain amount of 4-cylinder hate when it comes to pickup trucks, and I understand it. I get it. It depends how you're really planning on using your pickup truck. If you're actually using it for work and carrying a lot of weight and stuff, it might not be the way to go. If you're just using it as a passenger vehicle, I think there's enough proven good 4-cylinder engines out there that it shouldn't be an issue. But most truck buyers don't want to have a turbo engine. They want to have a good quality V6 or a V8, and they're not excited by a 4-cylinder or a 4-cylinder turbo. I get it.
Yeah, I completely understand, because I don't even if it did put out the same amount of power and everything and it sounded the same, there's still more stuff. If you have a turbo in your vehicle, there's still more stuff to go wrong in it down the road. I want the fewest amount of moving parts in my vehicle as possible.
It sounds to me like you want an electric vehicle, or
got one.
Yeah, or a blast from the past, a rotary engine, a Wankel engine from a Mazda. Because the thing that was supposed to make the Wankel rotary engine a better choice was fewer moving parts.
I can tell you what I do have, which I'm excited about getting on the road again. I've got the very first vehicle that I ever bid on at an auction. It's a 1991 GMC Blazer.
Okay.
No, it's a. Would it be a GMC Blazer? It's whatever. It's a GMC. Yeah, but I think it's got to be a Chevy then if it's a Blazer. But I've got that, and it's got the perfect interior on it. It's a 1991. It's got power seats in it.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And power windows, and I sat around forever. I bid on it at an auction, and 14 years ago, might have been 15 years ago at this point, because this was even before I was dealing cars. I took like $1,000 to the auction, and I hit it at $950. And then it went to 1,050, and I didn't have the money for it, so I
Yeah.
got off of it. My grandfather ended up buying it. He was a car dealer,
Yes.
and he sold it to my uncle. But my uncle a couple years ago passed away, and it was given back to my grandfather, and then my grandfather gave it to me because he knew it was the very first car I ever raised my hand on. But that's a project I want to work on too. But there's not a lot of moving parts in that thing. Yeah, there's more electrical under the seat than there is anywhere else in the whole vehicle.
Well, you'll have to keep us updated as to the progress you make.
Yeah, hopefully we've got a new space that we're working on right now that I can actually put some cars behind me while I'm doing these. So hopefully I'll be able to have it sitting behind me in the near future to be able to show it to you.
Oh, very cool. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Tell every living person you know that they need to subscribe to Car Sense with Brandon and Ray.